brought to you by Restream, which is a multi-streaming app for you to go live on all your social media platforms. So Elaine, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely.
And how do you take your coffee? And if you don't drink coffee, how do you start your day?
Well, I don't drink coffee, but in the last couple of years, I've learned that mocha is a wonderful flavor. And so I usually start my day with a mocha shake made with cold pressed coffee that's been sitting in my refrigerator all night. And then I mix it with some chocolate and some vanilla protein shake powder. And that is a really yummy way to start my day.
That sounds excellent. I got to try that.
Yes.
Cold pressed coffee, mocha, and vanilla and chocolate protein powder.
Yep.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you are on your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, one of the reasons that I love my entrepreneurial journey is because of where I am. Currently on the deck at an Airbnb in the woods of Connecticut.
Nice.
And so being location independent means that I can let other people rent my house during the summer and go off to parts unknown or parts semi-known. Obviously this year I'm doing much less traveling than I usually do in the summer, but at least I found this place, which is a lovely place to spend a couple months.
Nice.
What do? I write. I mean, basically, I'm so grateful to have a business that comes straight out of my head. You know, I don't need physical plant. I don't need employees. Well, I have some employees, but I don't need like people to make my vision real. Right. I just need a keyboard. And it, like me, is wireless, so it goes wherever I need it to. So I'm a writer, and I've been writing for longer than I care to remember. I say 25 years, say 25 years plus. That's not a depressing number. I started out writing speeches for CEOs on Wall Street, and that led to an interesting encounter we can talk about later. And I've been basically on my own for the last 25 plus years. I did take a job at a small PR firm right after 9/11 when clients miraculously stopped paying for things. And actually, I dreamt about them last night. I dreamed that I was voluntarily going back to work for them. I hated it there. It was awful. But I was voluntarily going back, and I had to make the best of it. And so I was like, well, at least there will be birthday parties for the staff, and I can have cake once in a while. I mean, that...
If that's the highlight of a job,
that's the highlight of a job, you are in serious trouble. So, and now I'm working as a coach for people to help them learn how to write better. And I have a joint venture with a really, really smart person.
I wonder who that is.
I was Fenway, my dog. No. It's you.
Well, obviously.
That woman right there.
Aww.
So I've really enjoyed. I mean, once I got to know you and I saw how smart and driven you are. I mean, you do more things in a day than I do in an hour, and I always thought I was driven. So I love that we're working with people to help them get their TEDx dreams a reality, and that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, same. I mean, well, right back at you. Let's say that. It's been kind of a dream because the synergy works so well because I don't write speeches, right? But I can get people on stages. And, there are a lot of other ancillary things that I can do, but I was never able to help anybody write their speech. I can help them practice. I can help them with performance. I can help them ideate. I can help them get booked. But you're where the magic happens, in terms of writing a speech that people are going to be remembered for, right? So
I haven't found the right metaphor for that. I've tried "you're the donut and I'm the hole," or you're the rye and I'm the pastrami, but but in any case, we complete each other. Oh my God, are we doing a remake of Jerry Maguire?
We are. Well, I think of it as like I'm the outside of the Oreo and you're the filling, like because you do the meat of it and I like bookend.
The delicious stuff in the middle.
So together we're a double stuffed Oreo.
But you're in polite company, so you just eat the whole Oreo. Yes.
Exactly. But when you're alone, you go for that the center. All right. How did this get so off track?
I don't know. I was in the deli.
But of course, my mind went to sweets because that's who I am. So.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's been great. It's been really wonderful, doing all the TEDx things with you and getting people, my gosh, getting people on stages.
The ideas they have. And they come in and they're like, well, I'm not sure that anybody will really want to hear this, and then they come out with this brilliant idea that just needs some shaping and focus.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's part of, I think, our mission, at least part of my mission, is to help people get clear on what all they have to offer the world, not just in terms of TEDx, but just in terms of self-confidence and motivation, because it's so easy, especially for women, but for lots of different people, to feel beaten down by the world and unappreciated. And when you feel beaten down and unappreciated, you're not going to think that anybody wants to know what you have to say. I mean,
right, exactly. And even just in our last small program, we had somebody get booked onto a virtual TEDx.
Like 10 minutes after the program ended. It was amazing.
Exactly. And there was somebody who came in and were like, well, I don't know, maybe here's my idea. And all it took was a little bit of guidance. And, for a lot of people, a lot of the folks that went through that program, they came out with these fantastic ideas, and just speaking to that, like, I know I've worked with so many people over time who have, they come to me and they're like, well, I don't know if I want to give a TED talk, but here's my idea. And it's like this perfectly wonderful original idea. Yeah. So what do you say to that person that comes to you and maybe they're not sold on their own brilliance, for lack of a better word?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say, I think, is that you're not alone, that so many people have this roadblock, and it's just a matter of hearing feedback from other people, from you and from me, from the other people in the class. Wow, this is a really good idea. Absolutely, you should say it. People are going to be interested in it, and they need to hear it. And often people haven't ever gotten that kind of feedback. Yeah. When I was working for the Horrible People, I quit and got a contract gig with a better company, and I was turned in my first assignment for them, and they fell off their chairs. They were like, "Oh my God, this is brilliant! This is amazing!" My old boss made me do 27 drafts. I mean, literally. So you just need to be in the right circumstances with people who will see you for who you are and not for who they are jealous of, or whatever this person's problem was. So hear that it's not unusual if you feel like you don't belong or you don't matter. join the club. You know, we've all been there. And when you first, you just wrote a pilot for a TV show. And when you put that out in the world, were you 100% confident that everybody was going to love it?
Nope.
And did pretty much everybody love it?
Yeah, I mean, and even something like that I would consider a success, right? Like I would consider that to be an astounding success. Yeah. It's one of the better collaborations I've had in my life. I felt I was creatively realized, and I felt good about it. Even then, I mean, put that in the wrong hands. We got some feedback that, didn't make us very happy,
I heard some of that feedback.
One person said to us, more straight people. And I was like, you're missing the point,
Yeah, it's a play called Two Anxious Bisexuals needs lots of straight people in it. Really, honestly, Marie, straight people are not represented enough in popular culture.
They're so underrepresented.
They need an outlet. The world needs more stories about straight people.
What a time to be alive for sure. Obviously, we're very serious when we do our work.
Yes, Marie and I never joke.
But yeah, no, it's the same thing. I mean, and that was not easy. I'm sure writing your TED Talk was not, even though it was a brilliant idea, and by all accounts, it was this really successful talk. In fact, people quote you. Right, they quote your one word, which I won't give away unless you want to.
No, that's okay. You can look up my TED Talk. It's,
watch her TED Talk.
It's search for me on TED.com or on TEDx.com. Big Ted picked up the talk like before I even knew that it had hit the internet. So I got the idea, and I thought, okay, this probably is an okay idea. Mm-hmm. And I wrote the talk. You organized this TEDx. This is one of the ways that we got to know each other better. Yeah. And you wanted an outline, but I don't really do outlines, especially not for myself. I'll do one if a client pays me to, but right. Just write the damn thing.
Which is fine.
So I wrote it and I sent it off to you, and you're like, yeah, this is great. And then I sent it off to a friend of mine. So this is a good tip here. If you're writing something and you don't have like clients to bounce, because really when I write something for a client, the client's opinion of it counts way more than mine.
Right.
Even if they're wrong. So I sent it to a friend of mine who I know is smart and a really good writer, and will be honest with me. I sent her something. I sent her a script that I'd written a while back, and it was terrible. And I knew it was terrible. The minute I pushed send, I was like, no, I told her I'd send it to her on Tuesday, but it was just, it was awful. And so I sent her another email immediately that said, this thing is terrible. Just don't worry about it. And she wrote me back and she said, well, it's clear you've done a lot of research. So that's the kind of friend. That's the kind of friend you want to send it to. But she was blown away. And she said that the idea, which I usually do, but, I wasn't thinking, it was me, whatever, that I should bring back the idea from the beginning at the end. And I love that when a speaker circles back, it gives me a very complete feeling as an audience member. And she said, you should bring it back at the end. And I was like, of course I should bring it back in the end. She said, but it was just jaw-droppingly amazing. And I was like, okay. I mean, when somebody's not afraid to tell me something's bad, you got to accept them when they say that it's good.
Then you can believe them when they say that it's good. You know that they're not just kind of, making you feel good or whatever, But, and I will say that part of the reason I didn't mind that you didn't send me an outline is because I know you're a great speechwriter, and whatever your process is, like, go for it, and it ended up being this, when you submitted. So I know we've kind of talked about this before, but when you submitted, I knew there was nobody else that was going to be able to come up with an idea even close to that, right? It fit the theme perfectly. And on top of it, it was the kind of thing that could open a day, right? It could have been if I were doing a traditional conference, it could have been the morning keynote about changing the paradigm.
Yep. Well, that was your theme, changing the paradigm, right? And so I specifically thought about that theme. I came up with the idea specifically related to that theme. I mean, I probably could have given the speech at any other TEDx.
Yeah.
But I came up with it specifically for you. And you don't always get that opportunity with TEDx events. Sometimes they'll just put it out and it's happening in Santa Barbara. Okay.
Right.
What do you want me to talk about? Surfing? Yeah. So I knew what your idea was, and what your theme was, and when I came up with something that fit the theme, I kind of knew, even at that stage when I didn't know everything that I was going to say, but I did kind of know that if you accepted my talk, you would have to put me first.
That's very smart. That is so smart, because what do people remember? They remember the first thing and they remember the last thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe the thing that happens before intermission and after intermission,
Right.
So
Right.
That's incredibly smart. And it's good advice for anybody applying to something is, if you know the theme, see if you can hone your idea. And sometimes it just takes a sentence or two. Like you could have, your talk could have been called to make change in the world, we have to change our language, or to create a shift.
Right.
But instead you said, to change the paradigm, we have to change our language. And that was so specific to my theme. It didn't take much work on your part to hone it and say, this is why it relates to your theme. And, that in my book, that's what gets you put into the yes pile. So, it's.
And actually, one other comment I got from my friend was that I used the word paradigm a lot in my speech, and that it seemed to mean different things each time. So that was the only point at which I mentioned paradigm, was in that opening, in the title of the speech. If you go back and listen, I don't think I say the word once in the speech.
Oh, wow.
But
yeah, I think you're right about that. You start with the story, and then you end with your own word.
Yeah, because I could have gone back and cleaned it up and meant the same thing throughout, or explained what I was talking about when I said it. But I thought that would just muddy up the story of the speech. And the story of the speech was, this book that I read 30 years ago that had a paradigm shifting effect on me. So, and on the audience, apparently.
Yeah.
So can I get you to tell one of my favorite stories, which is about the person who completely ignored everything about your event and your expressed theme,
Yes.
and yet tried to get booked multiple times.
Multiple times, yeah.
So TEDx Women, Bay Ridge, the theme is changing the paradigm. Go.
Yeah. So, first of all, if a TEDx Women's event is for women, and it's, and basically not cis-het straight men.
Anybody who identifies as a woman is fine.
Yeah, and so this man wrote me several messages, always in the middle of the night, about how he is not a woman, but is the blended father of 4 teenage girls and 4 female cats. And so he thinks he can speak to the perspective of women. And didn't tell me what his idea was. Didn't tell me, what his... it didn't tell me any, in the far-fetched idea that I might have said, well, actually, you have a really good idea. Sure. He didn't even bother,
Well, to be fair, Marie, you did not have anyone on that stage talking about cats. So that's a perspective he could have brought. I find that male cats tend to be friendlier than female cats.
I find that too. And part of the reason being that I have a very, very friendly male cat.
I've had 2 male cats before I discovered that I was allergic to them, and they were both love bugs. But So maybe he had something to say about female cats. We will never know.
Maybe, but it's a funny story, and I love to tell it because it's hilarious and it's really extreme. But actually, the point being that, if your idea does not fit a theme, don't go to the organizer and tell them why they should have you anyway. And I got several other submissions like that from women who were like, my idea doesn't fit, but here it is anyway, and here's why you should have it. And, this is like a college application. I got a lot of submissions. I had a lot of things to rifle through. Anything that puts you into the no pile. I mean, it's so easy to just be like, okay, nope, I can't. I just don't have the time. I have to focus on the ideas that are right.
Yeah.
So, and
plus there are a million other TEDx's. Well, not a million, but there are lots of TEDx's.
Close to it.
So submit to Santa Barbara where they don't tell you what the theme is.
Right.
Or submit to, somebody else. That's like trying to date someone who's wrong for you, Well, I know you're wrong for me, but let's go out and have a pizza anyway.
Right. Or try to be in a relationship together because you're not the only person in the world, right? So there are plenty other fish in the sea,
Plenty of TEDx fish in the sea. That's our new tagline.
Oh, interesting. We might have to talk about that for our marketing copy.
Yeah. There was an actual idea that came into my head, and now I can't remember it. So take it away.
I love how this sort of devolved into us talking about our TEDx.
All right, we'll talk about something else.
No, it's fine. But it's funny. Like we always go down the TEDx rabbit hole. It's great, and love you for it.
Well, it's work. I enjoy doing it with you, and we do another program coming soon. But
we might as well plug that as well, which we can do.
It's our TEDx happy hour. It's the program that somebody got booked to a TEDx 10 minutes after it ended. Mm-hmm. We're starting it up again on July 23rd. But send us a note on Facebook, and we'll send you more information.
And I will I'll put the links in the bio and in the show notes, as it were, so you can look for that. But I mean, I know you're in the process of kind of revamping your business, and part of that is what we're doing together, of course. Yep. What else are you excited about? Like, what else are you?
I am really excited. That's probably not the right word to describe what I'm about to say, but about the need for people to understand the language of inclusion and belonging. And, there are lots of diversity and inclusion professionals out there. I've written about diversity and inclusion for over a decade. But I think that there's maybe a new opportunity for people like me who understand language particularly to work with those folks and help them shape their messaging around belonging and around inclusion. And so I'm very excited about doing that. And of course, my TED Talk was about that, not from the perspective of race, which is, foremost on people's minds right now, but just from the perspective of how language can include or exclude women, particularly since it was the Bay Ridge Women TEDx. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm also excited about the private coaching that I'm launching, and the getting more back into corporate work with strategic messaging consulting at a higher level. Because in the past, I've been taking the sort of vague ideas that people give me and giving them back messaging embedded in a speech. So I thought we'd try and see how it looks at the other end of the pipeline. If I help create the messaging, maybe it'll be stronger. People would give me, when I was writing op-eds, my client would say, okay, we want you to write an op-ed about how corporate America needs to work with the educational system. And I would say, okay, what's the second sentence? Because, yeah, of course, corporate America should work with the educational system, but it can't always be mom and apple pie, right? Sometimes you need to throw something unexpected, a shepherd's pie, into the mix.
Right. Right.
So they get these great ideas for messaging, but they don't know how to put the messaging into actual words.
I love that. And I think it's such an interesting time for language, even, as somebody like I came out, gosh, almost 15 years ago now. Right. And the language that was a part of all of that was so different than it is now. And, pronouns are something that people lead with now. Yeah. We have different language for what gender is, and different language for many, many, many more terms for all the sexualities and all the all these things, right? So how important is it for corporations or businesses to be paying attention to that right now? Like, do you think that that's something that people haven't been paying attention to?
I think that some corporations have not been paying attention to it, and some corporations have been paying sort of lip service to it. Right. And very few corporations have been actually doing the work. I wrote a speech for a CEO probably around the time you came out. And he was speaking to a bunch of college students that they sort of wanted to woo or high school students, nearly graduating high school students. And they wanted to get them, used to the brand early so that they would come and do summer internships and then maybe accept a job. And I wasn't there when he gave the speech, but I was told that when he said, as a straight white man, I blah, 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 the whole ballroom started buzzing. He said he was straight. He said he was straight. He said he was straight. I mean, of course, the assumption would be that he was straight, but to acknowledge that there was something other than straight that was a possibility in his universe.
Yeah.
That is not something people were doing back then. And he gave me absolutely no pushback on that. He just said, as a straight white man, I blah, blah, blah. And and that was a long time ago, right? But I think somebody who wasn't a lesbian speechwriter would not have known about that nuance, would not have recognized that nuance. And so you need people like us in the position, you need people like us with keyboards and brains to create these messages. And so it's you got to attack it from all sides. You've got to attack it from your staffing perspective to get people with the right perspectives in the roles that are going to make a difference. And then you've got to have the people saying the words who actually believe them. And then because that's the only way that it'll sift down through the organization. If the person who wants to be promoted from manager to senior manager understands that being accepting of the trans person on their team is going to get them seen favorably by their higher ups, they will do that. And so it's a package. People say it starts from the top. Well, it does start you need it at the top, but if it just stays at the top, it would be like ordering a layer cake, but the cakes are just stacked on top of each other, and the only icing is the buttercream on top. What kind of a cake is that?
It's one that falls apart.
One that falls apart, and one that will be very dry and not fun to eat. So you need everybody. You need the buttercream everywhere. You need everybody working on the same assumptions. And I've heard stories
it's really
from
interesting.
No, I mean,
Oh,
I've
go
heard
ahead.
stories about people who were treated well, and I've heard stories about people who were not treated well. Um,
Yeah.
when I was on retainer with this client for more than a decade, and early on, when they knew that they wanted me to write diversity stuff for them, they sent me to a conference, an internal conference that they were holding with all of the different employee resource groups throughout the company. And so there were people from the Black resource group and the gay resource group and the mothers and people with disabilities and blah, blah, blah. And I stood up at the first session to introduce myself. And I said, if I were a full-time employee, I would be a member of the LGBT resource group. And again, the room exploded. And people were like, the CEO speechwriter's a lesbian. Oh my God. Didn't get any dates out of it, but
Well, oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't looking. But you need that kind of representation, and you need it to be visible, and you need it to be vocal. And I am never afraid to say, you need some of this. You need some of this in your sauce here.
Yeah, because maybe the room exploded when you said it, but maybe 5 years later, that kind of thing became commonplace, and the newly out trans person
Right.
didn't have that happen. So the effect that you have when you do that and when you put it in your messaging can be really, really, you just don't know what kind of reach that you have with something like that, which is really wonderful. I was talking on my Broadway podcast. I was talking with a producer, and we were having the diversity conversation. And he's somebody who, as a straight white man, is really thinking about diversity. And one of the things that he said to me that stayed with me was, yeah, we could have diversity in the casting, but that's really not the only place you need to look. We need, diverse bosses. We need diverse, investors. We need diverse producers. We need it everywhere. And so I think that's exactly what you're saying as well.
Yeah.
Oh no, I think we lost Elaine. Hang on, everybody. This is one of the magic things about going live. Is that there she is.
I guess somebody in Facebook land was not happy about what we were talking about.
Oh, I thought you meant we had a troll, but I guess you just you back in. I was like, wait a minute, do we have a troll?
No, I don't know. I've only been here a couple weeks, but I've never had this happen. I've never disappeared. So anyway, I'm
the
back.
Conversation that we're having is too racy.
Well, I mean,
controversial.
Diversity, not such a great story, huh? But,
yeah, I've heard better, I've heard worse.
That's true. That's true.
Sorry for saying.
So Hamilton, I used to love to use Hamilton as an example of diversity to talk for my corporate people. And after Mike Pence went to see Hamilton before the inauguration, and then my people were like, we can't talk about Hamilton anymore. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
But what better way to open somebody's mind than to, have a black person play Washington or Jefferson, When Hamilton performed on the Tonys, back when they won all those Tonys, I heard that the Google searches that night were like, was Hamilton Latino?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think that seeing people where you don't expect to see people is a really good first step. And then the second step is to make that more of a, of course they're there, you know?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And, and I think people have, and of course Hamilton is still, they still don't get it perfect.
Yeah.
They still don't, there's still a lot that people, feel.
Yeah, the joke about Sally Hemings really grates on me. But the thing about Lin-Manuel Miranda, who wrote it, is he's really open to this criticism. He's like, I worked on it for 6 years and I had to condense it into, 2.5 hours. I couldn't deal with everything. And you're right.
Right. Exactly. But at least we're having the conversation now in a way that we weren't before. And Hamilton is, aside from Hamilton in the Heights, a few other shows, like how much diversity really is on Broadway elsewhere.
Right. Right.
And you look at shows like, you think of Kinky Boots, okay, maybe, but it's still pretty,
Yeah.
It's still, that's a complicated show. There, so there's a lot.
And would the main character have been black if the main character hadn't been black in the movie?
Right. Exactly.
When Audra McDonald started out, she was cast in Carousel as Carrie Ann, I think, and she won a Tony for that. But that is not a character that's usually cast as a black woman,
right?
And so they made it colorblind, because how can you listen to Audra McDonald sing and not want to cast her in every single role that there is? But I just read something this morning that she was saying when she was going up for auditions, they were like, oh, well, you're black, so belt for us, show us your gospel range. And, she could sing opera if she wanted to.
Yeah.
She could sing blues. She can sing anything. But, how do you... Just because you've got a black actor standing in front of you, do you need them to sound black? Right.
And I brought up Tootsie, but actually that was a little bit colorblind. They had the character of Julie, played by a black woman on Broadway, but she was a white actress in the movie. So, that kind of thing is happening now, where it may not have happened before, but it's probably not enough, and it definitely isn't enough. And we could be doing better, and we could always be doing better.
So to steer this back towards business a little bit, I was at a business conference last year, and there was a speaker, a keynote speaker. So everybody's in the room.
Right.
And he was talking about, I think his overall theme was authenticity. But as part of his speech, he talked about a Saturday Night Live skit from years ago when Dr. Seuss had just died in real life. And so they had someone on the show to read the entirety of Green Eggs and Ham as a tribute to Dr. Seuss. And the person that they chose to do this was the Reverend Jesse Jackson. And so that was funny, right? Because Jesse Jackson's such a serious person, and he's reading, I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them, Sam, I am. So just that is funny enough, right? Now, the guy who was speaking, he told me he couldn't find a clip of the actual sketch. So he read Green Eggs and Ham for us as if, did I mention he was a white guy? He read Green Eggs and Ham for us as if he were Jesse Jackson. And, afterwards, I talked to the conference organizer and I talked separately to the speaker. They were both completely incredulous. What could possibly have been wrong with that? And then when I talked to the speaker, he finally, 20 minutes into the conversation, he's like, I always used to read Green Eggs and Ham like that to my daughters, and they thought it was the best thing ever. And so when their school had a Dr. Seuss day, they had me come in to read Green Eggs and Ham for them. And I looked, and there was this little black girl sitting in the front row. And I thought, should I? And I didn't. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
that was the right decision. And the truth is, if there had been more people of color at this conference in Boston, which is, not the most diverse city in the world, but if there had been more people of color at this conference, he might not have made that decision.
Right.
So, yeah, but it just amazed me that two straight white men gave it no thought that this was the wrong thing to do, that white people should not be imitating black people. Just not a clue.
Yeah, should not be doing it. Just
never.
Because the history of it, and it's not something we learn, right? I mean, I learned it because I went to music school. So we talked about the minstrelsies. We talked about what that was and, why it should never happen and, what music came out of it and what music didn't come out of it and all of that, because there's a lot of history there. That thank God I learned it because I came away with an awareness, right? But most people, especially if they're on track to go for their MBA, or go to school to become an accountant or something like that, they just don't learn it. So
learn it, folks.
Yeah.
If you have stuck it through this conversation this far, I'm willing to bet you are interested in inclusion and diversity and belonging. So if you already know that it's wrong for a white person to try and sound like a black person, tell other people. Except when you see it happen. Yeah. No, it's, and it's so easy to stay quiet on these things, especially, I mean, and the same thing for if you hear somebody, misgendering or using the wrong pronouns, speaking up is so important, and it's not, don't know. If you use the wrong pronouns for somebody, don't make a big deal out of it. When if I talked about Marie and said he, that's not your pronoun, right?
Right.
So, I was talking to Marie and he said, oh, I'm so sorry. I forgot. I'm sorry. Marie, she, just don't. I was talking about Marie and he said, she said, that's the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Because the first one, I'll be honest, like the first one, it's a funny example, right? But if that actually happened, it would make me feel uncomfortable. And like, now I would have to have the burden of apologizing to you and say like, hey, it's fine. It's okay. Why are you being weird about this? But, in the second example, it's such a non-issue.
Yeah. I love that we collectively have gotten to a place where we make the people we are offending or misgendering or overlooking in some way, we make them responsible for making us feel better. It's a really good trick.
She's being sarcastic.
I am. I am being totally sarcastic. No, don't make people do extra work.
Yeah.
The work is ours to do. As white people, as cisgender people, as whoever we are, the work is ours to do.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And so I love that you're making that pivot and doing that, because I think I think you have a lot to teach the world, especially the business world. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, it's work that makes me feel good. And it's work I've been doing way back in my very first speechwriting job when Bill Clinton had just been elected president. I had a guy who was a black executive at the company. He came to me and he's like, I'm getting on the train in 20 minutes. I'm giving a speech. Bill Clinton is having some sort of job fair and for people of color, and I'm chairing it, and I need to say something at the beginning. And so I looked at what he'd written, and and so we hope you will consider diversity as you're staffing up. And I said, give me that piece of paper. And I crossed out hope and I wrote expect. It's like, this has been going on for a long enough time. We have a right to expect that they're going to staff up with diverse hires. And he looked at me and he's like, how did you know that? And I didn't come out to him at the time,
right.
but that was how I knew that, you know.
That's one, and again, language matters, right? And that's such an example, because one word, hope, right? Expect. Well, no, one puts the onus on the person hiring, right?
Yeah.
So that's
we hope, but we're not really invested in whether you do or not, because we've been hoping for a long time. We're really good at it.
Yeah. We'll hope some more. We'll sit here and we'll hope some more, right? But instead, we expect is, and that's more direct language, right? Yeah. It's not something that, if somebody tells me they expect something from me, well, I'm more likely to get off my butt and do it than if, so. Yeah. Good. I love it. It's, everybody should hire you for their diversity messaging, because I think it's wonderful. Yeah, so we have our happy hour coming up on the 23rd. It starts the 23rd. It's a 4-week course, and it's a way to get your feet wet and work on your messaging and your storytelling and your ideation and all that stuff. And you walk away with your elevator pitch for your TED Talk.
Which you're going to need to pitch yourself to any conferences you want to apply to. I want to say I'm really also very happy that we attract a diverse group for our classes.
We do.
People, we had a Black person, we had some Indian people, we had East Asian Indian, and not Native Americans, because I don't use that word Indian to describe Native Americans. But we attract a diverse group, and so it's a great proving ground for your ideas. You get it looked at from a number of different sides, and you get to learn culturally about other people. Some of the things that the Indian women wrote about their lives was just
one of them taught yoga to refugees and inmates and all these really wonderful things, and
refugees in refugee camps, not just like people who had come somewhere and so really fascinating stories out there and fascinating ideas. And whether or not you think your idea is fascinating, this is the program for you, because we will tell you if it is, we will tell you if it isn't. We will tell you nicely.
We will be nice about it.
We will help shepherd you towards a better idea, but we'll be honest with you.
Yeah, we will. And the other thing is that it's very much a safe space, because a big part of having good ideas is having ideas that don't work. And so, this is the space to get out the ideas that don't work, look at them, see what's not working, and find what will work. Right. So that's what we're here for. That's what we do well. And obviously we have had some success both separately and together, doing this work. So, I've been on all sides of the TEDx table. I've been an organizer. I've helped adjudicate, applications. I've also been a TEDx speaker, and you've been a TEDx speaker and an award-winning speechwriter for many years. And you've even written for, Warren Buffett, right? Am I?
Yes. Yeah. I wrote.
Sorry, I just have to name drop there.
No, I have coaches who are like, you should say my name is Elaine Bennett and I wrote for Warren Buffett, like that's my whole name. But that's not who I am. Yes, I was very privileged to work with Warren Buffett. He came in as the interim CEO of the first company I was working for, and since I was the CEO speechwriter, he inherited me. He didn't actually give any speeches while he was there, but I wrote a lot of internal stuff for him. And he was kind enough to send me a lovely handwritten note at the end of it, praising. He said, "You have a terrific ear, and you turn straight thinking into straight writing." Now, I'm not sure which ear he was talking about. And my ex girlfriend was very amused by the straight thinking into straight writing. But,
yeah, I have to smile at that too.
But I think that just means that I can write for straight people as well as for non-straight people. So,
hey, if you can write straight, then as a queer person. That's
Well, I've been hearing them all my life, so I know how they talk.
What a great compliment, though. I mean, what a thing for Warren Buffett to say that.
Yes,
You know what I mean? That's
Yes.
I agree, and I hope you don't mind me bragging on you, because I'm just like, that's so cool.
If I'm not going to brag on myself, I need you to brag on me. That's the way that works. We're a team, not just a comedy team.
And we have fun doing it, which is good.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
So join our program. I will put the link in the comments and all that good stuff. And I guess I will be seeing you later today for our program. And
yes, we've got a class this afternoon, so I will see you then. And thank you all for watching, and have a great day.
See you soon.